And it's it must be the 13th of July,
Hey, Anthony.
2022.
Yeah.
Hi, Anthony.
Hi.
Have we where's the half? Have we passed the half point of the year, or is this?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, the end of June.
Oh, okay. Oh, so it's downhill from now on, I guess.
Or uphill. It depends on
Yeah.
if your cup is half full or half empty.
Uh-huh. So,
I coast either direction.
But
he said he
I
coasted
coast in
directly.
both directions.
oh, good, very good.
Mhm.
That's good.
It's like when I had to walk uphill going to school and coming home.
Yeah.
I was young. And
In the
kids these
snow,
days,
in the snow with the sand in your face.
yeah, kids these days also when we finally got TV, which was I think 1954, we got electricity, and then I had to walk all the way across the room to the TV to change channels, or I would have, but at first we could only get one channel, so changing channels didn't accomplish much. Oh, John Borland, Mr. Foreman. Mr. Foreman, I don't know, you're on a streak. Your photos you've been posting are awesome. Hi, Rainey.
Since you're
Thank you.
like you thinking like 10 minutes.
Hi, how are you?
I can't move my car. I'm in school. I'm in school.
So, well, it looks like,
Hi, Randy.
yeah, hi,
Hi.
Rainey.
Did you get my message?
Yeah, I just got it and I was gonna try to call you before the meeting, but I can call you after this is over.
That works.
Okay, thanks.
And thank you for your kind note.
Oh, you're welcome.
So I talked to Linda about this, but Rainey might be interested as well as John Wortham. There's a program on PBS called Crafts in America. And there's 13 seasons. And in season 13, there's a program on jewelry. And I just thought some of you might be interested in taking a look at that.
Thanks for bringing that up. That's nice. Anyone else want to say something?
That's on what channel? Where's that at?
It's on PBS.
Oh, I
And
don't
if
watch
you-
TV.
If you have a passport with PBS, means that you can access their programs anytime you want.
Oh,
That's
how do you
it.
get a- I
It
haven't
also
heard of-
might be on Amazon Prime.
Oh, what's the passport? I haven't heard that.
That's when you contribute $60 or more to PBS per year.
Oh,
They give you access to all of their programs.
oh,
You can watch them anytime. For instance, if you have a certain program like Nature or Masterpiece or something like that,
right.
you log in and watch all different kinds of episodes of it.
Oh, I think that's really cool. I had never heard of that. Thank you for bringing that up because I do like PBS, but I got frustrated when you have to make an appointment to watch your shows. So that's cool.
Okay.
Okay, oh, yeah. And my phone has been ringing off the hook for 3 days. And I finally realized why. I don't usually fall for these donation things. And I should have asked Amy to ask her daughter, but I got the phone call about the police association. Do you want to support the local police, blah, blah, blah. I can see her hand now. So I gave him $25 and I have been, my phone has been.
Yeah, because it
unbelievable.
was a scam, and so they've
They
also
sold-
sold your number to
Yeah.
scam. If it's, if you wanted to donate to the police department, you can go down and give it to them and hand it over. And I highly suggest the widows and orphans of officers and peace officers that are killed in the line of duty. And then that money gets funneled right to that family. Widows and orphans.
that would be a good thing for you to post, because when I got the call, I'm not happy about the respect that police persons are not getting. And I really appreciate what they do. When I was a newspaper photographer, I went out on various assignments where I was working with the police, and so I know what they're going through.
Yeah, it's pretty extreme right now.
Well,
Yeah.
it's 3:05, and I'm going to ask Linda and Catherine for announcements, but I have a couple first. One, I just posted on our Facebook page new information that the VA now has a guest has set up I know they always had one, but this sounds more legit, a guest Wi-Fi system that you can use anywhere in the VA. And the password is welcome1. The second is, if anybody, the Facebook has been a real bear the last few days. I got a call from Mr. Foreman about 3 o'clock in the morning where he was trying to post, no, it was in the afternoon, I think, whatever. He was trying to post pictures and they weren't showing up. And so I looked into it, and then he had posted twice because he didn't see them. Well, then when they did show up, he had duplicates. And then I went to post mine and they weren't showing either. And no matter what I tried, I couldn't see what I post. But I thought, okay, I'm not going to, till I figure this out, I'm not going to repost them. But the next morning, I could see them. But also, even on the Facebook page itself, there's some weird things going on that I don't understand. So pay attention to that. And if you figure it out and gain some knowledge here about what to do with Facebook, please share it with everyone. I know they posted a notice the other day, and I haven't been able to get back and do it, but it was something about how they've improved and upgraded how their pages are handled. So anyhow, that's what I have. Let's have Linda and Catherine make announcements, and then Doug's going to do a quick tip, and then he's doing the lecture today on workflow with Lightroom.
I don't have any announcements at this time.
I just want to congratulate Linda and Rainey. They've been recognized by the County Commission, County Veterans Advisory Commission for their video. And they will be receiving an award in September.
All right.
Nice, yay, great. Awesome.
Way to go.
God bless. Thank you. Glad you're on here, Rainey.
Well, thank you very much. And I appreciate Kevin reaching out to me. And I did receive an email today that said that we're allowed to share any information in pertaining to any entries that want to be submitted for this next year's competition, as long as it's submitted by August 30th. So if I can put that on the link.
Okay.
And you can find the categories online also.
Yeah, because the people at the VA, they said specifically if there's a category that you want, that they'll send you those forms. But I say just check them all so you can get all the information.
That was it.
Okay,
Oh, here, let me hit
Alright.
their screen. I'm sorry, Doug. Wasn't a little slow to respond today. Okay,
Well, I think some of you saw it. I put today's quick tip up on our Facebook page, hoping to reach more people. I think today I'm looking here, we have 16 today. Quite often I'll see 25 or so more people look at our images that we have posted. So, and hopefully to have more people see our quick tips, I put it up there. Kevin, you had a question which I wrote back and answered you. Did you get the answer you were looking for?
Yes, yeah, I was just kind of being a little facetious, but I hope you don't mind the humor.
Not at all. Rolando, who's not here right now, also had a comment, but so today's it's on the webpage. Let's get going here. I'm going to share that. Going to go up here. Change this. That's good. Change this. That's good. Move this up out of the way. All right. Despite the occasional circumstantial evidence to the contrary, cameras do not take images by themselves. I don't
Doug,
know
I
how
don't
this
think
image
I think your
here we
screen is
see on
not
the
showing.
screen happened to show up on my camera one day, but there it was. I think in reality, we picked the time and the place to point a camera towards the image subject to create our images. Other than setting a time shutter release to take a remote image, we push the shutter release when we are satisfied it's going to be right. Sometimes we're happy with the result. Unfortunately, there are times when we're not so happy with the result. We understand we invest time and effort to create our images. However, we may find ourselves wanting to improve the image or make the results look better in some way. We make those improvements using photo editing software. There are many to choose from. I believe there's one called GIMP, G-I-M-P, Picus, Google Photos, Adobe Elements, and Adobe Lightroom, just to name a few. They all make adjustments to our images, and that's typically we're talking about exposure, cropping the image, making color shifts, highlight and shadow changes. Pretty much any of the editing software will do that. Some do more, but at least the basics are covered. Some are free, some cost money. During these presentations that we do here on the Warrior pages, we tend to focus on Lightroom, and the reason being is it's one of, if not the most popular of these photo editing softwares. Last Wednesday, Steve did a deep dive into Lightroom using his workflow. Today, I'm going to do the same thing using my workflow. Some of our workflow will look the same, some will look different. This demonstrates that there are often multiple ways to achieve the same editing goals. Our overall objective is to help you get more comfortable using photo editing software so that you can make achievable improvements to your images using your own workflow. Similar to Steve's presentation, I will go through the full process from putting new images on my hard drive, improving them if they need them, and finally moving them into my folder organizational system. You remember that, hopefully, from my presentation on organization. Where'd I go here? I'm reading, I apologize. Since I shoot in RAW, most of my images will need to be developed. to fully utilize the advantages of shooting in RAW. You will see my current workflow using Lightroom. I say current because software is constantly changing and improving. I try and stay current with these changes. Now, it all starts with getting the images from our camera memory card onto our hard drive. For that, we use the Lightroom import module. Remember the extra credit from a while back. All right, what we're going to do is start off in the import module. Some photos that I took. This is the screen library. Here we have our hard drive. Now, again, I have a specific hard drive for my pictures. Probably many of you just use the original C drive in your computer. This side over here will tell you where to start. So we begin down here by starting the import process. And if you'll notice on the left side, kind of like anything else, we read from left to right. If we have our C drive, our pictures are probably going to come from there. In our case right here, it's of my Canon camera. It's the memory card. I start here. I work my way up. I'm going to copy these images. And the most important thing I'm going to do is tell them where to put these photographs. I'm going to put them here. As you saw last time on my organizational, I have a set folder I use every time. In this case, I'm using my 7D camera. I'm going to put these in there. At the same time, I'm going to give you a little background of the images that we took here. The backstory is that Rose and I went down to the Patient Gardens to take images for this presentation. It was about 8:30 on a Saturday morning. The conditions were morning sunlight with lots of deep shade. It was a bit windy. My goals were to take mostly flower images, anticipating that there might be some bees or butterflies or both on some of the flowers, and then maybe even photograph some of the interesting sculptures or other things they have down there. As I often do when photographing flowers or other subjects where I want to draw the most attention to the subject using a narrow depth of field, also that would be considered blurring the background, I used a telephoto lens. In this case, it was my 100 to 400 attached to my crop sensor body. The camera was set to aperture priority at f6.7. I had the ISO at 400. I used a center focus point, and as I often do for flowers, I had the exposure compensation set to a half stop overexposing. And today that was today's quick tip and the poster you saw in there with when metering goes wrong, and they had the pictures of the cats on it. We were just getting started when we were unexpectedly joined by another visitor. That visitor distracted me, pulling me from my initial objectives, and I ended up focusing most of my time on the visitor. So here we have, let's go ahead and start the import process. I'm going to put it in my 7D. That's the camera I chose. I've got the ownership. I'm going to make sure I have the 7D Mark II developed preset, and I'm going to go ahead and import. What we're doing right now is obviously just bringing the images from the memory card onto the hard drive. And in this particular case, I have it set up to copy these images into my 7D camera folder. That's where I start the images, and you'll see the next few, hopefully next few minutes, what I do once the images are in here. Now, right now, it looks like we've got all 42 in. If we look at that folder, it says there's 48. What happened is, not what happened, I had some images left over from my last import that I hadn't finished yet going through and making the edits. So what I do at this stage right now is I'm going to go through and put my keywords on. I'm going to start with all of them. They're all 2022. They're all with the Patient Gardens. They're all with my 7D. That's probably right now for all of them. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to add to them. These 4 are flowers. I've got some images of the guest or the other unexpected guest that arrived. The hawk. Going to add birds and hawk.
Question, Doug.
Yes, sir.
How do you figure which ones of those you're going to add that to?
Right now, I'm just adding them to the ones I've selected. In this
Okay.
case, if the subject changes, in this case, I went from flowers to the bird. That's why I'm changing the keywords.
Okay, so you select just the birds.
That is correct.
Okay.
I'm going to call that a flower, and just in case, I'm going to add the flowers. And down here, I'm going to call these obviously the tower. And this is we'll just call it a doorway. So I'm taking out tower and I'm putting in, whoops, doorway. So right now we've put keywords onto all 42 that we took recently. Now, what I do after that is I go through and I rate my images. I have kind of 2 ratings. The first rating is I give it a 5-star if I think it is sharp, if I think it is photo worthy, if you will, to put on my wall, and it's worth developing or editing in Lightroom. I can probably get rid of this over here because it's not in my way, it's just in my way right now. I'm going to go to go back here to full screen. Nothing great. Nothing great. That's not bad. This one is definitely sharper, so I'm going to give it a 5-star rating. These other 2 aren't so sharp, so I'm going to give them an X. Whoops, I don't want to do that one. I just did the wrong one. Where'd it go? By putting an X on it, that means I can ignore them and eventually delete them very simply. That's the sharp one, probably worth editing. That's pretty sharp. Look a little further, that's sharp, that's sharp. All pretty much the same, so I'll grab one and give it a 5. I gotta get in the develop module first, I guess. I'll give it a 5. Work my way back through those. That one's not bad. That was looking real good. That one's blurry. I'm going to give that one the 5-star. I'm going to give that the X. Give that the X. There's another good looking one, I think. That's better. I'm going to give that one the 5-star. Probably X out the one previously, although that's not bad. We're going to see what happens. And we'll start a new sequence here. I like that. It's nice and sharp, but I don't like where the head is. Same with that. So I'm going to probably X that one, X that one. I like what he's looking for now. And I like that one. I'm going to probably give that one the 5-star.
Did
Now
you
here
use
we
a
have a whole
burst on
different
some of
perspective.
these?
Looks like it could be overexposed a little bit, but I don't like the sharpness. So I'm going to give that an X. Don't like the sharpness, give that an X. That one's nice and sharp. That one's nice and sharp. So we'll give that one the 5-star. Oh, kind of interesting. Kind of interesting. Oh, something went really wrong there. I know it was windy. I'm getting the feeling that that was probably wind, and I don't know if I can bring that back. So I'm going to X that out. There was an apple tree there for the first time. Not sure I like that. And then I saw this blue rock in the stream. It's okay. That's a little better. I'll give that a 5-star. I'll go back to the first one and X it out. I do like that. Probably X that one out. The door is interesting. Got two angles of it. I can see that the door is not straight, so I'm going to have to straighten it out. So I know that I'm going to crop, and in cropping, when I straighten it out, I'm going to use up some of the side width. So I'm going to choose the one that has the most space on the sides, and that's that one. I'll go ahead and X out that one. And then we got the Long Beach Tower. Out of all of them, this is the straightest. So there's my 5. We'll get back now to full mode. So out of those 42 images, we're down to probably 7, 8, maybe 9 that we like. Any questions what I've done so far?
Did you use a burst mode on some of these?
I'm sorry, Alan, could you repeat that?
Did you use a burst mode to take some of these?
Yes, in fact, just about every one of them was a burst mode. Usually I hit 2 to 3 at a time. And the reason why I do that is, as you're seeing here, just primarily my out of focus images are more from my from operator error, that I have camera movement due to me rather than the focusing mode. So by doing the burst, quite often, maybe the first one's a little blurry, but the second or third one will be sharp. So that's why I shoot in burst mode. And that's why you're seeing 2 or 3 at the same image. Does that answer your question?
Yep.
All
Doug,
right.
I have a question about putting the X on.
Yes, sir.
Do you use a keyboard shortcut, or what do you do? Highlight the picture and just type X?
Yeah, I just simply go to the image, and on the keyboard, I'm hitting the letter X, which means
Okay.
delete.
Okay.
Now, what I can do later on, I've got an awful lot of stuff on the top here. All right. I'll get back to that in a second.
Yeah,
So let's
go ahead. I just haven't used that before, so.
Okay. Now, be careful when you're using the X. We have seen in the past where if we try and use the crop tool, that if we use the letter X, it will shift over from a horizontal to a vertical or portrait mode. So
Okay.
if we accidentally, when we're trying to drop something down to a portrait mode, we may accidentally hit the X and try and delete the image.
Oh, okay.
But just be careful, the X is used twice. So let's go ahead and grab this image right here. Let's take it into the develop module. Now I have my blinkies on. I gotta get rid of this out of the top here for some reason. I gotta get that out of the way. Okay. Now you'll notice this red highlight, halo. I have my blinkies on up here. I have it for both the highlights and the shadows. That's telling me the picture is slightly overexposed, or at least overexposed. So I can grab the highlight tool right here and bring it down to where it goes away. And now I set the high point, if you will, of the highlights. Now, I look at this image and I say, I'm not too bad exposure wise here. I got a little something going over here with the feather that's outside the edge of the body, telling me that I've probably got blue sky in this thing. And we're seeing some of the bleed through of the blue sky on the thin or sheer leaves. So let's just bring the exposure down and see what happens. There's our blue sky. Now I can bring the shadows up. Got to worry about those highlights. And we at least have the bird now looking pretty good. What I would do, I would probably go up here with the new masking feature. I'm going to select the subject because I want to improve the overall image of the bird. And you can see here that it's done a pretty good job of selecting it, but it's left this area out over here. I could add a brush over here to just the blue edge and maybe add just a little bit here. And let's see what we can do to improve that. Let's come down to a little clarity. It looks a little blue to me. Maybe it's because of the background. So I'm going to change the color just a little bit to warm it up. And maybe add just a little bit of contrast to it. Now I'm going to put texture, which is going to sharpen that bird, just the bird. And maybe come down here to add a little more sharpness. Go into full mode. Come on. That's not looking too bad, is it? Now I'm going to go up here and do this again. I'm going to create a mask. I'm going to go back and do the subject again. But this time I'm going to be on that mask. I'm going to come over to the three dots and I'm going to invert the mask into the background. You can see a little bit of area here where we didn't quite get the bird right. So I'm going to go up and I'm going to do just a little bit of work on the background. I'm going to add a brush. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go back over here and I still want to work with this area with the color. I'm going to probably bring the clarity down just a little bit. And that takes care of our edges here pretty good. So in just a few minutes time, I'm thinking we got that looking pretty good. Any questions? All right, going back into the library, I'm going to pick another one that I chose. this one, same sort of thing. I'm going to start looking at my highlights. Now, right now with the blinkies on, I got lots of room. The highlights are not a problem. So I could bring those up just a little bit. If I go too far, it's going to bring the blinkies up. I could bring the shadows down maybe to put a little more contrast in it. Not looking too bad. I got a little bit of green in the background. So what I'm going to do is bring a mask up, select the subject again. And it's doing a pretty good job of choosing the flower. I'm going to go ahead and invert it. Now there's two ways. I could go back up to the mask and hit the three dots, or there's a little checkbox right there that says it. But you'll notice there's a little bit of bleed through here. So I'm going to add a brush and go in here. I'm going to invert that. Yeah, let me try that again. Let's try that again. I'm going to select the subject. I'm going to add to the mask. Add a brush. Now I'm picking it up. There we go. So all I'm doing is adding to the mask. Now I'm going to take that. I'm going to invert it. I've got the background. I thought it was a little too green. So down here, I've got some controls over the color. And to take away some of the green, I'm going to put in just a little bit of red. And now we've lost that greenish tint we had in the background. Looking at it again, I'm going to go back and select my flower, just the flower. And I'm going to play with the highlights just a little bit to bring it down. Maybe bring those shadows up just a little bit. Throw a little bit of our weekly challenge, the contrast. And I'm liking that a lot. Now I'm going to put a little bit of crop position in. Now what I could do, because obviously this is out of focus, I could maybe darken this a little bit to make it less noticeable. Or I could maybe take it into Photoshop and take that out. So if it's something that distracts from the image, I can do that. Or just come up here, grab another brush. You'll notice the color changing right along the edge. And I could play a little bit with the exposure to take that down so it's not quite so noticeable. Take a little bit of the clarity away so it even goes more out of focus. And maybe bring just a little more. All right, any questions on the two images we have so far?
Yes, you talked about, quote, blinkies.
Yep.
I'm not sure what that is or.
Okay, do you notice? All right, we got to get something out of the way here.
Oh,
Up here at the top of the development module, we have the histogram.
Okay.
In the upper right is the blinky to indicate when something might be overexposed, or the histogram has gone all the way to the right and started to climb up a little bit, meaning that our images, the whites in the images are getting out of the range of our software. Same thing for the shadows or dark areas. You'll notice we're kind of over here already because of the dark background.
Okay.
I could pop over to the develop module. And if I take my blacks down even further, now you can see the blue blinky, which is the blacks. So if I adjust that to where that blue just goes away, and if I adjust the highlights, there's the blinky right there.
Okay.
I
So
see
it's
there's
related to
blue.
the histogram.
Yeah, I'm just moving the histogram, or I'm moving the white high points. If I hold down the Alt key, I can do it the same way here while I move that. This is the highlights. So as soon as that light comes on, that means that the highlights are just now right at the edge of still showing detail.
Okay.
Now, if you remember my presentation on quick tips last Wednesday, we talked about perspective correction. Now, we decided that for this image right here, we like that image because it's nice and sharp. Let's see what we can do with this rascal. I'm going to start by bringing the shadows up a little bit, because you can see that the hawk is just a little bit dark. I can bring the overall exposure up. That looks a lot better. Let's see if we can take the shadows back down. In this case, what I'm going to do is we could leave this sign, the perspective, the way it is, but I'm not quite sure that's the way I want it. So I'm going to get down here, just like we did in the quick tip from last week. I'm going to go down to the transform section in the develop module. I can hit automatic to see what happens. And that helped a little bit. But what I want to do is level this sign out completely. So I'm going to go up here to the guided upright tool, which is a shortcut of Shift T. And as you saw last time, I'm going to grab a line and draw it across the top part. And I'm going to draw a line on a vertical part. And see what happens. Now I've got the sign looking a little better. Going to go down here and try a third line. That looks a lot better, if that's the perspective we want. Back to full. I'm liking that. We can tell that that surprise visitor to the patient garden appears to use this sign quite often. He's apparently a regular. Now I'm going to go up and try the mask again. I'm going to go ahead and select our subject. What I'm thinking, what I want to do is darken some of these tree leaves or branches in the background, putting more of the attention on the bird. So again, I'm going to go up to the mask, and I can go to the three dots, invert the mask, and it will select the background. And then I'm going to go ahead and start bringing the background down just a little bit to take that attention away from the background. I could also come down to the clarity, remove or take some clarity away, and that's going to put that further out of focus. And I could do the same thing with the texture slider, put it out of focus. I can go back up here and maybe bring the exposure down just a little bit. So I'm thinking that's looking pretty good. How about you? So
Yeah, I think that looks good.
Okay, thank you.
The quick tip tools are I like those because then it helps you with how to help guide you, learning how to develop the photo. So you're not there, you know, it's giving you a guideline of, you know, what it thinks. It's almost like when I put my camera on autofocus or whatever, and it's shooting the best that it thinks, and it gives you the line for the aperture and this and that, that's where the best photo is. So this is like a guide to help you develop it, I think.
Sure, great
Yeah.
point. Now, I've got the images, at least the first few, developed. Now, you'll remember this is in my camera import folder. Now, I was taken it to Patient Gardens. So now that I have these images developed, at least the ones I want to start with, I want to get those into my final folder system that we set up in the organizational process. Now, I've been to the Patient Gardens a few times now, but it's always been with the photo warriors. So I've got a folder already under warriors that indicates Patient Gardens, and I've been there 3 times. I could drag these over into the Patient Garden folder, but this wasn't a warrior outing. So what I'm going to do is create a new folder under the parent hierarchy, create folder inside pictures, and I'm going to call it Patient Garden. And I'm going to create it. Now down here under the P's, we should find Patient Garden. Right there it is. Now, because I probably will go back, what I'm going to do is create another Patient Garden. I'm going to give it a date. Now, this one was July 2022. So now I've got the Patient Garden and I've got when these pictures were taken. So I'll go back up here and I'm going to start moving some of these images over to the final destination folder. Now, this one was one we decided we liked the most. It's got the 5-star. So that's going to make the journey. This one, we liked all 4 of these. We liked this one, these 2. Whoops. Let me try that again. We like those. I'm going to hit control so I can choose just the ones I want. I'm going to non-consecutively put them there. I like that one. Those 2. We definitely like these 2 because we just developed them. But wait a minute. These are hawks. I actually have up here in my system under birds, I have a hawk folder. So what I'm probably going to do, I've got the flowers we moved over. I'm going to grab the hawks that I like. And I'm going to move those over into my hawk folder. I could get my fingers to work. There we go. And then the other images I want to move over. Until I develop any more, I'm just going to move those there and get them out of the way. Patient Garden, here's to July. This is my workflow, how I work in Lightroom. Are there any more questions? Now, the images that I have X'd out, that I decided they weren't sharp enough for whatever reason, I don't want them anymore. I go up to photo, delete rejected photos. And it's telling me I've selected 15 images to delete. Now I've given a choice. I can remove them from Lightroom altogether, just Lightroom. They'll still be on the hard drive. Or I can go over here and delete them from the disk because I don't want them anymore, which will automatically take them out of Lightroom. So they're gone. All the X's are gone, leaving just the images that I felt were worthy of developing. Do you see any images here? I'm done with developing as far as this presentation, but do you see any images here you might want to see how I develop those?
The yellow flowers, Doug. Takes one of those.
Up here?
Yes.
Okay. I've already got these highlighted with my 5 stars, so let's start there.
Oh, B. Oh, wow.
We got a B on it. Now I'm going to start my development. First thing I'm going to probably do is crop it down and get rid of some of the stuff that's not necessary. You'll notice that I've got the rule of thirds out. Looking at the background, it's a little lighter than I would like, but we're starting over here. Going to bring the highlights down maybe. No, not too much. Let's go ahead and use the masking tool. It's got the flower, and looking at it, it looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and invert it. Let's try looking at taking that background back just a little bit. There it was. Looks a little better, darker. It brings more focus to the flower. Let's go back and select again our flower. And we might want to add some clarity to it, which is just a little bit different, but the same effect as contrast. Just a little bit of texture, which is sharpness. And then if I want to sharpen it. Now, let's say for an example, if I zoom in here. All right. If I zoom in and I see some graininess back here, which would be the noise, I could go back into the develop module, grab the mask that is the background, and then use the luminance or noise reduction tool down here at the bottom. I know you're here. I know you're here. Where am I? Where? Ah, here it is, the noise. I can move that to the right to reduce that noise. And now when we zoom in, it's not quite so bad.
Mhm.
Anthony, is that what you were looking for?
Yes.
Now let's take a look here. If I can go up here. Yeah, I was going to try and see if I could shut this off before and after, but that brings out that bee and that iris plant better.
Really nice.
Any other question?
And Doug, I noticed you don't touch the dehaze slider right below the clarity. Is there?
Yeah, the dehaze is kind of a mixture of clarity and contrast.
Yeah.
They work in conjunction of those two sliders. It can, unfortunately, get a little blue when it does that. Notice that blueness? Here's no dehaze. if you start to bring the dehaze in, you'll notice you're picking up the blue. So that's why I tend to be very, very careful with dehaze. If I can't grab it in contrast or in clarity, and I have to use a dehaze, particularly if it's a landscape where there is actually haze in there, then I can go ahead and bring a little bit of that in there. But you notice how far I go, the bluer it gets. So that's why I tend to be careful with that.
Okay.
Any other questions? So I guess in summary, obviously, is in spite of how much experience we have, there are times when we have to or want to improve our images. Here's the before, there's the after.
Wow, it's nice.
It's really-
Nice. Yeah.
And I still have a little bit of blue here. What I could do is under the develop module, which I'm in right now, you can tell because it's yellow up here. I can come down a little further into the HSL color module. And I've got choices of color hue, which is the actual, how blue is blue, the saturation, and then the luminance. Well, right now, we've got just a little tiny bit of blue. So if I go down here to the blue slider, I can pull that blue down a little bit. Now it's a little more gray. And if I wanted to maybe darken that a little bit, I could darken it by the luminance, how bright, or if I want to take it up a little bit.
How about trying the purple?
You see purple there? Okay. Let's
Yeah,
pull
right
it
below
in.
blue.
Let's bring the purple down on saturation. And now we've cut just a little bit more of that green background. I could take the slider down for green and get that into more of a grayish color.
Doug, were you trying for the bee, or the bee just happened to be in the frame? when you took the
I
picture?
know, I was actually making sure that that bee was there.
Okay.
It's a dead bee he puts in his pocket and puts it wherever he wants.
Now, obviously, when we zoom in type, we've got just a little bit of light color here that, as we saw, the blinkers weren't on, so that we're still detail in there. I could maybe go up to the mask and grab a brush and just right along that edge, bring that down just a little bit. But I don't think it looks too bad.
Well, I
gives
like
just
it
a little
there.
definition.
It gives it a higher highlight in the middle. I think it draws your eye into that flower. I think it's
Right into
great.
that spot. All right, we're coming up on 4 o'clock. Any other questions? Any other points anybody wants to make? Tell me to shut up.
No, it was a good demonstration.
Very good.
Thank you so much. I mean, I use this program every day, and here you've showed me like 3 tricks that I didn't know how to use. So thank you so much.
Okay. Now, one thing, when I imported my images, I sort of forgot to do or explain, and that is the presets that I have coming in and assigning the general keywords that would apply to all of the images. I inadvertently skipped over that. What I do is, out of 42 images, they were all at the patient garden. They were all created in 2022. So I would put 2022 as a keyword, put patient garden as I import them, so that they would automatically be applied as keywords coming in. And then I would go back, just as you saw me go through and narrow down the images, good versus bad, or okay versus better. I would apply the correction or the additional keywords as I did for the flowers and the hawks. I would add those individually as I went through. And that way, all of the keywords are assigned before I start developing it.
Oh, that's good. That's a good tip. Like that.
Yep.
And the reason why I do the presets, all of the presets, and there's like 5 of them, I put a little bit of vignetting in. I turn on the correction for the aberration. I put a little bit of correction in for the lens. And in the case of my crop sensor, because it has a tendency to be a little noisier than my full frame, I put a little luminance correction or noise reduction right at import. I would do those anyway to every image I would edit. I just do it right from the import process, saving me a lot of time. All
Good,
right.
good. Packed with information. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes a lot, it makes a lot of sense.
Somebody had a chat down here. Did I see it? Didn't see it.
Yeah.
Do I use it? Kevin, I use a PC
Awesome.
and I shoot Canon.
Awesome.
And I typically will shoot one of 2 cameras, my full frame sensor body and my crop sensor body. And as you saw, whenever I import into Lightroom, I bring all of my imports into whichever of those 2 camera folders I used. In this case, it was the 7D Mark II. Every time I import off the camera, the 72 Mark II, it goes into that folder. I never lose my images by saying, where did they go? I don't know where they went. Where are they? And then when I finish my development, either one photo at a time or even blocks of them, then I'll go ahead and move them over to whatever final folder I was going to put them in. And if I haven't got one already there under the parent folder, I will create a new folder. And as I've mentioned before, I go by subject and then I'll add a date to it. Stephen has a perfectly good way of doing his. A lot of other people do it as well, by date, chronological by date, and then by subject. I'm not here to claim one or the other. I'm just how I do it.
It's awesome to have both or 2 different ways of doing things. And what everyone should hear is it doesn't matter how you choose, just choose it, go and stay with it.
Yep.
Just you've got to be consistent and then you won't lose your images.
In case you haven't noticed, I had the moon behind me. I hope you have been watching or seeing the moon at night for the last couple of days. Tonight, the moon is the closest it's ever going to be to the Earth, which means it'll be the brightest and the largest in the sky.
Ever? Like
for the year.
Oh, for the year. It happens.
For the year.
Okay.
Until next year.
Okay.
What would be a good lens for a starter to take a picture of the moon?
The longer the telephoto, the better. And the sturdier the tripod, the better.
I'm going to be at Discovery Well Park over on Signal Hill to try and capture the moonrise tonight.
Cool.
And if you paid attention to the quick tip on the Facebook page, it talks about exposure, cameras being fooled sometimes on the exposure. If you have a predominantly bright subject, and the longer the telephoto, the narrower the field of vision is going to be on that moon, and the brighter that moon is going to be, your camera is going to see that bright light and say, I want to bring it down to 18% gray or middle gray. So what we want to do is set our exposure compensation to bring it back up, or overexpose to bring the white back up. If it's the predominant, like the background you see here, you're using a wider lens. The black is going to want to be overexposed to make the black more gray, and you'll want to do just the opposite. Use your exposure compensation to bring it back in towards the black. With the moon, if you're focused on probably 50% or more of the moon in your image, that could be as much as a stop that it's going to underexpose the moon. then you want to throw another stop in exposure compensation. Little trial and error, a little practice, a little crimping on the back, taking a look, you'll dial it in.
Hmm.
It's probably best to do some bracketing.
Yeah,
Oh.
or bracketing.
And check your exposures, you know, just keep looking at the back of the camera if you can. And
Yeah, if they look dark, it's because the bright moon was the predominant thing that the light meter saw in your camera. If it's a little underexposed, it's because it saw more of the dark background.
Mhm.
And you can compensate for that.
cool. All right, Kevin, we'll be looking for some good pictures from you. Have you,
I hope so.
have you
I
shot
was
up
there
there?
last month and I failed. I don't. I didn't
No, you
get
didn't. You
anything.
probably learned a lot.
I learned a lot of what not to do, but hey, in my senioritis, I didn't write it down. So I'm going to go learn it again.
Good. Yay. I do that a lot. Was it crowded last time you went up? Because when there's an event like it's the closest this year, there'll be a lot of people shooting up there.
I don't see a lot of people shooting the thing. I do see a lot of families up there picnicking in the evening. Sometimes it's a little difficult to get a parking spot, but I haven't had any trouble.
Good.
I kind of found a good spot to put my camera that's out of the way,
Mhm.
so people don't.
Good.
There's frisbees and footballs and things going around there. So
Does that spot you're going to allow you to say, put the moon in perspective with a background scene or a building or a landscape, or is it all just in the sky?
well, depending on where the moon's coming up right now, it's coming up over the town. So it is hard to get something else in the picture with the moon right now. In the winter, when the moon comes up further down in the southern horizon, there are some trees that come into play. But right now, for the most part, since it's so far north, there just really isn't any trees or
Mhm.
anything.
Yeah.
I could see going up to Griffith Park or someplace and shooting the moon coming up to the east, overlooking the Los Angeles basin.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, that'd be nice.
Mhm.
Yeah, or if you could get someplace where you could, get some nice buildings and stuff. I did see a recent photo in one of the photo sites of the moon coming up with Queen Mary in front of it.
Mm.
And the person must have been gotten into the port somewhere and taken that picture, because I don't know how else they were going to get that. But
Well, last year at this time, from where we live here in Cypress, Ball and Bloomfield are our cross streets, the moon is coming up to the east, about over top of, I guess that would be Disneyland. But it kind of moves a little bit, almost level on the horizon. But last year at this time, there was just some white wispy clouds right over the moon. And you talk about your Halloween image. All you have to do is just put a couple bird silhouettes in there or have the bird fly by. Whoops. Okay. Something happened here.
Steve?
Steve?
Hello, Steve?
Steve's muted.
That's a nice picture.
Yeah, it is.
You're muted, Steve.
I just texted him. We'll see if he gets it. Wonder what he's saying. He's
There, okay, finally.
there you are.
Look at that, 7 tips for photographing the moon on our webpage. Wow. Okay, sorry.
That's good service.
Yes, sure is.
All right, well, Doug, thank you so much for that presentation. That was well
Very
done.
nice. Very informative.
Thank you.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And another lesson you should have learned is that if you're sharing screen, it's real hard to get to the mute and unmute button. Thank you, Doug.
Thanks, Doug.
Okay, bye. Are we signing off?
See you Friday.
Okay, good. All right.
Thank you,
Bye.
Doug.
Friday.
Thanks again, Doug. See
Bye.
you Friday.
I think, well, Catherine,
What?
Friday is image review? Or something?
Kevin first and then image review.
I'm gonna take an hour and a half and tour Michigan.
Oh, boy.
Oh, okay. All right.
Sign
Good
on
night.
early.
I got 50,
50 images?
hello.
Tell them I say hi. I gotta go.
Okay.